Hello and welcome to Face to Face on City TV. My name is Umaru Sanda Amado. Well, the election is over, but not the petition. The courts are very active now. There was a hearing today, Tuesday. We're going to litigate the litigations in the courtroom with my guest when we come back. My guest served as a Deputy Chief of Staff. He also served as Minister for Health. But for purpose of this conversation, he's speaking to us as a spokesperson of the legal team of the petitioners in the elections 2020 petition. My guest is Alex Segbefia. You're welcome to Face to Face.
Good day to you, Umaru, and good day to all our viewers and listeners.
How are you doing?
By His grace, we're well. Tired, but okay.
Fantastic. I would love for us to speak about the courts, but you also wore a cap as a Minister for Health. So let's talk about COVID-19. We're hearing of a spike. We're hearing that hospitals are overwhelmed. There are some countries that are going in lockdown. There are people who are asking for the president to lock us down again. The president himself is saying that you have to not give me reasons to lock you and so on. What are we getting wrong with COVID-19?
Well, as a nation, we took a gamble, I believe. And the gamble was to ensure that we went through an election without people thinking that COVID was a real fear or real issue. Fortunately for either science, but I really like to say God had kept us in an area where actually most of Africa hadn't suffered in the way Europe, America, and parts of Asia had suffered. And so we lured ourselves into a false sense of security, giving the impression that it wasn't as bad and it was on the decline, and therefore we were going to get away with it. I think the reportage by government had also not been entirely accurate. I think that even when we were going through the process, we had made a lot of, or asked a lot of questions about the type of reportage in terms of the numbers. And in situations like this, if an important person doesn't get it and contracts it and possibly passes on, then it is swept under the carpet very easily. And as the elections were coming and various activities had to be done under the elections, a gamble was taken, in my humble opinion. And we got away with it up to a point. But it just meant that once you had people with a certain mindset, when this next wave came along, we were not in any position to let people understand that, look, COVID never went. It was always around. We should have been a little bit more careful. We should have been going on with the education. And so here we are now, and it's hitting, and it's not only in Ghana, in most of Africa. And this second wave, if for nothing at all, is more infectious than the first wave. And it's also, it seems to be have no fear of age. Because in the first wave, you notice a lot of youth didn't tend to get it. Now it's rampant across all age brackets. And that is why the issue of the schools opening is becoming a thorny issue as to whether this is the time or not. Leadership has some level of responsibility. I noticed that when I listened to the spokesperson, he tried to put the blame in some quarters on society or the people. That you can do up to a point. But the reality is that leadership itself has to bear the brunt of where we are now, because we follow their directions. But more importantly, we follow their examples. And not taking even my political party out, but in terms of leadership from government and all political parties, we haven't actually behaved in a manner that has helped get people to understand that COVID is real and people are dying from it. And now it's coming home to roost. Many people are beginning to be able to tell someone who's got it, someone who suffered from it, and now we are beginning to get people who we know who have passed on.
Now, what should leadership do really? They have done fumigation of markets, of some public places. They have locked down the country. They have closed down schools, churches, mosques. They have closed beaches, pubs, and all of these. They have forced people to test whenever they arrive in the country. They have done contact tracing What did leadership not do right? I mean, or they've done all of this.
Well, no, I think that the emphasis has always been on how you educate the populace. And that's why the NCC has a big role to play in all this. I'm here speaking with you, but we've kept a good social distance. So I'm able to say, okay, I'm not wearing a mask. Technically, one would say, look, if you really wanted to reinforce the message, we should wear the mask, regardless of the fact that we've kept our distances. That's why I'm actually saying it, that we have a good social distance between us. And therefore, and I'm not shouting at you. So and neither are you shouting at me. So we are playing it safe. But if you really want to send a message out there, and we all have our mask with us, I should be having my mask and putting it on, not because we are not in a safe environment, but because you want to get a message out there that we should be wearing masks. And that for me is the number one issue for me. Masks have to be worn, sanitizers have to be used. We must get back into the habit of doing them, because there was a time when we were very, very good at this. And we have to get back there to ensure that we do not get infected or pass on the illness from one to the other, especially since this strain tends to be more infectious than others, or what was there before. Then there is also the issue of proper expenditure and transparency in expenditure. We've got all this money that was given to government prior, and have taken from the funds that were meant for the future children of our future children, etc. We've gone into all kinds of monies from the World Bank, non-interest paying loans of 1 billion, etc. And so we have to start looking at how we are spending this money and whether we are spending it in the right area and whether it's going to produce the results that we have. We are also not cognizant of, we talk about helping business, helping our people, yet we are charging $150 for people who want to fly in and out of this country, which on a scale I think is about the highest or in the top bracket anywhere in the world. And you ask yourself why. If you really want people to be able to still move around and conform with things and do business as if COVID is not going anytime soon, you don't have to make it impossible for people to even do business. So for example, and I stand to be corrected, I know that if you're going to, say, Nigeria, they will charge you $100. If you were coming into Ghana, they will charge you $150. So you would do a test both ways. If you were, say, from here, you would do your test here, you would pay for it, which is around the same bracket. You would get there, you do a test of $100, so you'd pay $250. If in a week's time you decided to come back, you'd pay another $250. Just for one person.
Someone is making money.
Well, so are we really trying to fight the illness and still keep business moving and getting people and educating them? Or are we trying to make a profit of a very difficult scenario we are in? We know that Europe and England and the States have it even worse. And I think Britain has now recorded the largest number of people who died in any particular day or week. So they are having it very hard. So we should learn and understand that even with the hospitals they have, the equipment they have, the equipment in the States, in Italy, etc., when it hits, it is very, very difficult to contain. And if we are on about 200 infections or thereabouts a day now and climbing, we must be very careful that we never get anywhere close to what they are dealing with. If not, the whole country will just collapse.
The issue about the cost of testing, though, is it not to discourage people from coming into the country or to leave the country? Because just on Monday, the United States Center for Disease Control, CDC, had issued an alert or an advisory to its citizens, and U.S. citizens are warned against visiting Ghana. They must not, if they must not come to Ghana. That's what the instruction is. That actually puts us on a very high level on the CDC's levels of countries with COVID-19. The
but
government
I think
of Ghana
that the corollary or the opposite should be also there. I mean, frankly, nobody should be going to the States or to Britain if you don't really need to. So the message, their position is actually worse than ours. The only difference now is that they've started vaccinating. So there's a vaccine. But if you're talking of the illness spread and what is happening, then there will be nothing wrong with our government saying, look, by all means travel. I'm not saying don't travel, but there is no need to be traveling. In the same way we say here already, don't leave home if it's not necessary. Go for important meetings, important functions, but don't leave home. If you don't have to, don't. So this idea, look, let's just go and have a drink down the road. No, there's no need. Yes, it will affect businesses and places where we go out, but the risk that we take when we do those things, if you have to go into do a business or run, go to court as we have just done, then make sure that you follow all the protocols. Everybody was masked in court. Nobody sat together. There were seats in between everybody who sat. They had numbers. So even the court is looking at ensuring that they are not overcrowded or overloaded. It's just that when we have to then do the press interviews, then it becomes a different matter because everybody now has to be around and they want to be. So at a certain point, you advise yourself when you move off and let the person who is doing the interview deal with it because all the media come out and want to speak. That is one area of potential concern. And the question now that one should be thinking of, is there like going to be a room where they would have the media set out and then somebody speaks for one side, and then another person comes and speaks for the other side.
Moving forward, that's something that you think can work?
That can work.
The schools have been reopened.
Yes.
And it's all schools at all levels. If you were Minister for Health, is that something you would advise?
Well, you will have to look at all the data that you have from the experts to make that kind of a decision. What was very interesting was when I listened to an interview, I think, on your program, and they were asking some experts from the schools. They said at the time when they made the decision, they didn't have the facts they have now. And if they had the facts they had now, the decisions would have been different. So, for example, whereas at that time you could say, I'll take the risk and send some things as the school was opening and getting them done, you may have said, till everybody has everything, I wouldn't open. Because we can't open some schools and leave some. But if you're going to send us, just for the sake of argument, 100 hand washing buckets and a tanker of water every day, I want to know which tanker is coming. I want to see the 100 buckets so that, Veronica buckets, so that I know that I'm not waiting and then 3 weeks later they arrive. Because in that 3 weeks, there could be infections. So you would insist that government had put certain things in place they had promised before they went into school. And that didn't happen on the last occasion when even we had few numbers, just those who were writing the exams. But now you have the full shebang of school students going in. And therefore, government should have had all the things it needed in place. Now, bearing in mind what the situation is now, you needed to have them have everything in place before the students went in. They also had to be, children are children. You send your 6-year-old to kindergarten and your 3-year-old to kindergarten and your 6-year-old to class 1 or class 2 or whatever. And they play, and when the mask, they just take it off. And so there has to be some level of monitoring to ensure that if there was one teacher in the classroom, you need to make sure there are 2. Teacher to student ratio must change. Who bears this cost? How are they going to implement it? How are they going to deal with it so that the students, especially the young ones who aren't that disciplined, don't get caught up in a trap? Because now the young ones too are also getting COVID. So all these are things that have to be thought of by government. If they are making their decisions based on what was in the past, then it is possible that the decisions may be wrong. But I don't want to be a doom-monger. All I'm saying is they should revisit it and very quickly.
There are people who think that what is the rush for? Let the students stay home. What's the point of sending them back to school? Now, this is sacrificing education for health. What do you make of that? That let's not open the schools? Let's wait until we are very sure.
No, I can understand that argument now because we have vaccines. You see, in the past, when that argument was put forward, we needed to have the debate as to whether taking them into school at that point, or taking them out of school, then the question is, when would they go back in? Because nobody had any idea how long it was going to take to get a vaccine. Nobody knew how long it was going to take for it to lull or go into nobody knew. So you still had to look at a way of trying to get them back into school, but safely. That's why we can understand the decision. Let those who are going to write the exams go and write them first, and then we'll look at it. Now there's a vaccine. And if it means that there's a projection that, say, between March and June, vaccines are going to be available, what we should be thinking of is, or one school of thought is, don't send them into school now. Let everybody know that at the end of March or April, we're going to do that. But they will now become a priority case for vaccines. So the first set of vaccines that come in must go to the children and students, as well as the elderly who are more vulnerable. That way, when they go into school, they are immune from catching the disease, we hope, based on the fact that most of them, if not all of them, have had a vaccination. So postponing it for 2 or 3 months is not now such a bad idea. Having said that, it affects the cycle, and so you should look at it. One death is one death too many. If somebody sits back and said, could it be avoided? And so if it's your child or my child, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'll be saying, no way, why did we even open the schools? So it's really a difficult call. But for me, once there are vaccines and we are going to make the push, we should first of all know how we are going to fund it, because I'm told it's about $15 a pop. And that is, if you say, just on a statistical basis, you turn over 30 million people and you say, or say 20 million people, and you say you want to vaccinate them before you can begin to think of herd immunity, etc. You are looking at a huge, huge amount of money, but you can't run away from it. And I think that the cost is too high, and especially since I haven't got the data, so I cannot speak to it. But you want to know whether this is a vaccination that has to be taken every 6 months or every year, or it's 5 years. In perpetuity. You don't know.
Can we, though, as a country, afford that vaccine?
We have to. It's not a question of can the world afford not to vaccinate everybody. So they have to make a price. They have to have a price for it. Because if you're not vaccinating everybody or finding a way to have a price which people can afford, and you leave out Africa, or you leave out Asia, or you leave out South America, 2 countries in South America, and people are walking around with COVID. We move around a lot. People travel, and you will not solve the problem. If you're not careful, a new strain will come out which will create so much problems for even the vaccine that you have. So it's not a question of can Ghana afford it. Can the world afford not to allow?
So the world should, the global community should work at ensuring everybody
make sure that we have a price which the world can globally help poorer countries to meet.
Even though this is a commodity or this is a product by a private company?
Yes, but the private company has said, look, I cannot go down below $10. So Ghana must be able to say, look, we will charge everybody $1 and we will pay the $9. This is the way. There has to be some subsidy, and then Ghana goes to the World Bank or IMF and says, how can you assist us for the next 2 years to do this? And that negotiation must be held, because not to do it for everybody is just waiting for it to reoccur in a big way elsewhere.
And those are the views of Alex Segbefia, Foreign Minister for Health. This is Face to Face on City TV. I am Umaru Sanda. But when we come back, we'll go into the cost room to discuss the 2020 election petition. Don't go away.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
We live in a world where news travels fast, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate fact from fiction. Fact Finder brings fact-checking from the newsroom up close so you can separate truth from chaff. Be empowered to tell what's fake from what's real. Watch Fact Finder by the BBC on City TV every Wednesday at 6 p.m. City TV. It's your world.
You're welcome back to Face to Face. My guest is lawyer Alex Segbefia. So the NDC has challenged the election results of 2020. The NDC, through its flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, is in court petitioning against the declaration of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as the president. The NDC argues through its flag bearer that if all the tabulations are done, the election should be going to a runoff and not a declaration in favor of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. There are lawyers who are on the floor of the courtroom making the argument, and there are some who have been elected amongst the lawyers to speak for them. Alex Segbefia is spokesperson, or one of the spokespersons, of the legal team of John Dramani Mahama. You were in court last week. You got one of your motions accepted by the court. That's the one about the amendment of your writs. The other one about the telecast was already granted by the court. Today, you were back in court. What was supposed to be happening?
Today, we were supposed to it was set aside for us to have what we can call a pretrial review or a case management process. But we filed a motion in court asking for the court to accept some interrogatory questions, or asking for the EC, and I'm not going to use first, second respondent because
that's much helpful for us if you use the names.
Asking for the EC to answer certain questions. Now, when we say interlocutors, it's legal jargon, but basically what we are saying is, because expediting the case, getting it dealt with very quickly is paramount for all of us. If certain things are done in advance, it sets the store and makes it easier and shorter because you are crystallizing certain issues. So we give you a set of questions which arose from your statement your defense statement in response to the petition. And we would like to have some answers to those. So we wanted to know from the Electoral Commission, for example, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, when did you get to know that there were mistakes in your announcement? Mm-hmm. When did that happen? We wanted to know whether the NCA, National Communication Authority, was part of the transmission process of you getting the results. They were very clear, specific, which, when you look at our petition, were clearly relevant, based also on the answers that had been given. We were asked by the court to explain why we thought we could have the interrogatories or put these questions forward. And we relied on what had happened in the 2013 petition, in which similar request was made by Nana Addo then, who was the petitioner then, and regarding certain aspects of the case. And it was gone through, certain rules were looked at, and it was granted. We also relied on certain sections of the Constitution, and also the fact that the whole idea of the court process at the moment is expedition. We want the case to move forward. The court retired and looked at our question, not before the
plenary.
EC got up and gave a response. And in their response, which was very interesting, they accepted that it was relevant, because relevance is important. They accepted it was relevant questions, but they said they had answered them already. And we said, no, actually, it's not for their determination. The questions we are asking are not necessarily the way you've answered is not what we want. But once you've realized that the questions are relevant, then there's no issue. The lawyers for the government, or Nana Addo, even though they were not part of it, asked to make a further say. And they said you could make a statement, contribution if it was on law. And they tried to distinguish the part of the hearing of the 2013 election petition from what was happening in court today in terms of process. We responded and made it clear that the two were actually different in terms of one was for further and better particulars, which is another legal term, and this is actually to do with interlocutors, which are different. The whole aim, anyway, is to ensure that we narrow cross-examination and make the... So we were quietly surprised when the court came back and ruled that actually they are of the view that the rules and regulations that existed in 2013 had somewhat changed as a result of the CIs that had occurred and the practice directions that were going to, and therefore it narrowed down, and I'm surmising so because we don't have the judgment, and we've been promised the judgment by close of play today. So if I get it wrong, please, I stand to be forgiven, or I plead forgiveness. But in summary, what they were saying was that it didn't appear to be relevant enough to meet the criteria of the new interpretations that have come put on under the new CI and I think it was CI 47 or one or other. And therefore, they didn't grant it. We found it surprising because in the same way we are trying to, the court has been saying, no, we have only 42 days, we have to, this would have actually narrowed down the issues. We put in another request to this EC to ask them to admit certain things. And all these things we are doing are to just narrow the issues down and make it an easier trial and a quicker one. So we've asked the courts to give us a copy of their ruling because we don't necessarily agree with it, but we'll have to look at it and review it. And the court then wanted to proceed to the case management plan, case management process or pre-trial process. But because they hadn't granted, they had opted to listen to what we had and made a decision on it, they gave us to tomorrow 9:30 to come back to all sides to put forward what they felt the issues are so that we can crystallize the issues and then go through a proper case management and look at it. And hopefully by then also we would have had a copy of their judgment. And we actually asked for a little bit more time, so that we could actually look at the two, their judgment as well as the issues, the issues. Because actually the two are linked in some way, but the court said tomorrow 9:30. So
does it mean there will be another hearing?
Yes.
The cameras on Wednesday, like happened today.
Tomorrow.
Or the case management is done in chambers.
No, the counsel for Nana Addo made the point that they would like it to be on camera.
So they will set out their
not
own
in
issues?
camera, but televised.
Okay.
So that it could be dealt with and people know what the issues are.
So they will set out what the issues they believe are the key issues. You would also set yours out. Yeah. The court approves or disapproves.
And then they come down. We narrow it down.
So that's when.
And then possibly we look at the witnesses that need to be called, and then you can begin to put a time on how long this thing is going to be or not be, as the case may be.
So the 42 days that we were told, based on what you have said, you still think you will meet it based on what you were requesting, but now you've not been granted. There's an argument that you were rather going to waste the time of the court with the questions you were asking the EC to answer, knowing very well you would have an opportunity to cross-examine the EC chairperson. Yes,
but it just means that a lot of these things will now become part of the cross-examination. And whereas you just lead on from where it had been, the information you had got, you now have to go through the process of asking those questions. Sometimes it may get to the point where you have to call another witness to deal with something before you actually come back to it. So by getting them to accept certain things in advance, it helps.
In your writ, you mentioned the number of witnesses you're going to call.
In our petition.
In your petition.
Yes.
You mentioned the number of witnesses you're going to call.
Yes.
Can this change, or because you were...
At a pre-trial review, it may be. We'll have to, everything you want to do, you have to request from the court. And
would you have to again come through motion like you did with the correction? No, we could do the request
in court and say, look, we intended to bring 5 witnesses. Because you've not granted us this thing, we want another 2 witnesses. We need 7 witnesses to get where we want. And the court will then look at it and say yea or nay. But it is not it's not an amendment. It's not to the petition. It's not. This is how many witnesses. They cannot truncate you from bringing your case. And if
so, you can bring as many witnesses as you want.
No, well, they will ask you why and what is it that this person. That's why there's goodwill. We are professionals. You wouldn't just call everybody. You would call people who you need to prove your case. And so, as many as you possibly can, you need to prove the case. Yes, but we are not there to waste the court times. We are officers of the court ourselves, and so there is a meeting of minds. Even though you see us at loggerheads and fighting each other on the floor and fighting our corners, which you must do as lawyers. In terms of issues of this nature and process, if you need a witness, and your witness has to give certain evidence, nobody would truncate it. What was interesting was there seems to be some. Let me leave that for now.
When you say witnesses, these are people you are going to call to the courtroom.
Yes.
And lead them in evidence.
Yes.
Are these people who are your people?
But they would have affidavits, which the affidavits could be put to them which they'll accept, and then they're just handed over for cross-examination.
Okay, so they may not need to be there. What I mean is that, are they going to be friendly people to your side, or you can call witnesses that are...
You're putting your case, and those are your witnesses.
Yes, so can you call someone from the respondents as a witness? Is that something that... So can you call a polling station agent or a returning officer or a presiding officer?
Not necessarily. But if we put forward a set of facts and we have brought the other party there to answer those questions and they choose not to answer those questions, it behoves the court to take our evidence at first hand. So it means that unless it is clear as daylight or you can take judicial notice of it, the court will have to ask the other side, so okay, they've said all these things about you, what do you have to say? So they have to call their witness. If they don't call their witness, then you accept all our facts and our petition is approved. So we wouldn't have to summons Jean Mensah or an EC official. She's the returning officer in this. It would mean that we have to, no. They have to bring her in to debunk the things that we are saying.
So she will be brought in the witness box?
Well, I don't see how else they're going to go around it, because...
It could be her or any of her...
No, not at all.
She cannot bring her deputies?
The Constitution is very clear. Who is the returning officer for presidential elections? The chairman of the EC. Who gave the declaration on the 9th? Who announced that there was a winner and announced the winner? The chairman of the EC. That is her duty. She carried it out. So if...
Do the deputies not deputize for her in such?
If you put the deputy in and they say, did you make any declaration on that day? He says, no. What is his relevance?
Are you the ones who would ask that the EC chair comes to take the chair, or it is the EC?
The law requires it. I mean, the law requires it. We are not saying.
So she's not part of the 5 witnesses you mentioned in your petition?
No.
Do you want to share with us who these 5 persons are?
Not at this stage.
Is John Mahama going to sit in the chair himself as a star witness?
No, he doesn't have to sit in the chair. He's not a witness in our case. This is we are...
Is he not the one who will make the case for you? He's the petitioner,
but no, he doesn't have to make a case. We are, in our case, he's not under any obligation, under any statute or law. Somebody can speak for him. In Jean Mensah's case, that is not the case. The Constitution says she's the one.
In criminal cases...
The Constitution doesn't say that the commissioners of the Electoral Commission must declare the winner of the election. Then they could have brought anybody. It says the commissioners. It says the chairman of the Electoral Commission. And she did it because she was... Why do you think Afarijan had to go into the dock? Afarijan didn't go into the dock because he's the one... because he is the returning officer.
By law?
Yes.
In criminal cases, the complainants are usually the star witnesses. Why is it different in the civil case like this one, the petition, where the man who signed on the petition is not the man who sits in the box and explain how he was... Because
civil proceedings take on a different process. You have a case, a problem, I have one. The court is going to adjudicate on our matters. And unless by law you are the one that is mandated to have that information, you can be represented. So Nana Addo is a party to this issue. He's president. He's not going to be in court. He's being represented by Honorable McMinu. In the past, when President Mahama was president, he didn't come into court. He was represented by the party officials at that level.
Who is representing him now?
He's there in court.
Yes, but when
he's the petitioner.
Yes,
but he doesn't have to give evidence.
So when the party has to make his case, or when Jomama has to make his case, he has to make it through the party executives?
Yes, we do affidavits. After all, the party ran the election. So you have various people who played various roles. And depending on what we want to prove, these people will come and give evidence.
And these people you bring, when you do the leading of evidence or leading them in evidence, is it obligatory for the other parties to interrogate them, as in cross-examine them?
But that's your strongest tool. If you don't cross-examine them, it means you accept everything they say.
So you cross-examine to
demonstrate that what they are saying is inaccurate. Because if you don't punch holes in the person's case, it's accepted on the face of it.
In 2012, 2013, the NPP put Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia in the box.
Yes.
In 2020, 2021, is the NDC going to put Professor Nana Jinopokwa in the box?
Why would we do that?
Because that's what we remember, per president.
He chose to be.
Did he choose, or he was asked?
By who? It wasn't by us. It's the choice of the petitioners at the time.
But it will give your case some energy that the running mate was in the box. So if you have the running mate in your box now,
it won't change anything. We could send General Mosquito, it won't change anything.
It will give it some weight if you had the running mate, and if you had the flag bearer, that would give it
But you want to give
weight.
Evidence that most people are directly involved in. So you must understand that, you see, this is not about public sentiment. It's a court case. You've got to put your best foot forward. You've got to have evidence that if you go in for the razzmatazz and me and you are not there type scenario, fine. That's
but that's a legal thing you're doing in court. But there's also the political side of things. Don't forget,
but you must win your case first. Try and win your case.
There are people who believe that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia shown a lot in the petition, and that actually brought out the politician in him, and that made him appeal to the party base, and that in fact has given him a political footing. Do you not think,
so was it to
as a political party and as a politician now, that putting your number 2 or even your number 1 in the box gives him and or her some good footing? You don't think?
Let me ask you. So are you implying that they went into court for political gain, or they went in to win the case?
I do not know, but the two cannot be.
You have to understand why you are going into court. We are going to win a case. We will put our best people forward to do that.
In front of 7 judges, right?
I don't think that the number of questions that he was asked, which he had to let go of, because he was not personally responsible and had to be catching the eye of people to try and get answers, when you could have put somebody who had direct answers to those questions, was the best way forward. So you are looking at political gain. It didn't help them in the election, in the decision in the end. I'm looking at trying to win a petition.
Yeah, you're winning the 7 gentlemen sitting before or justices, but you also need 7.
So give your best evidence. If you had somebody who could have answered the question instead of saying, me and you were not there, so we don't know.
You bring someone who was there.
Somebody who knew actually what happened in the process.
Are you going to bring a polling agent then, or a party agent?
Don't, Umaru, I know that you're a journalist, but are you trying to try the case here?
No, I'm trying to forecast. You
can't forecast.
What the case will look like.
We are in court. They said we should go to court, isn't that it?
Yes.
We are in court. Don't worry about the judges will make the decision. We will call our witnesses. There's no need really for us to be going through who should be called, who shouldn't be called. It's our choice. And I'm just saying that you are being caught in the public opinion that this is a case about building people's political careers. This is not what this is about. We're not building. We have a whole political party, 6 million people out there expecting us to win a petition. You don't go there building people's political career.
So what you're saying to us now indirectly proves that neither John Mahama nor Professor Nana
I didn't say that either.
Would be in the box.
I didn't say that either. I said that I'm not in a position to tell you.
Asedu Nketia has a history of sitting in that box. Would you invite him again?
I cannot answer that question because I'm not running the case.
You know, but you not tell me.
I don't necessarily know everybody. I have an idea of some, but I don't know all the people going into the box. That is actually true. I don't have all the 5 names. But I do know a few. That's all.
Do you believe that the 42 days is workable?
It depends on what the court allows and what it doesn't. But at the same time, you cannot truncate people's case for the convenience of time. That's exactly what the EC chair did, and we are in this mess.
There are people who say that what the NDC is doing is just to make noise. And in fact, there are others who even argue that it is just for John Mahama to sell his candidature for 2024. I want you to look in the eyes of our viewers and say to them that this is not true. And prove to them that it's not.
We won't be sitting on track to go into court. Why is this the Tea Party? No.
To remain
we have
relevant.
Our case. Why do you think that? So if it was that clear-cut and straightforward and there were no issues, what was the point? They should give us everything we want.
In 2012, before MPP went to court, or
Yes.
the day they went to court, they did a press conference where they did a PowerPoint presentation and gave us specific number of votes they estimated or calculated to have been their votes based on knocking off figures here, adding figures here, and so on. You having done that, the little you did doesn't cancel out a significant portion of the 500,000 by which Nanado is leading your candidate, which means your request to push the election into a runoff based on the mathematical calculations you've done that are out there. I don't know what you're going to present to the court. It doesn't seem like you have a lot of numbers.
What number? You know that they are constitutional and statutory. Okay, let me put it this way. We have a winner. What figures did you say the person won with? What?
That's all you want to know? But that has been publicized. It's on TVs, on radios, everywhere.
And they, in their petition, said that they made mistakes.
Yeah, but those mistakes, are they fatal enough to affect the grand announcement?
Why not?
Because you recall what the
Because
petition,
the mistakes that were supposed to be corrected are also mistakes.
You remember the judgment of August?
Let's not try the case.
We'll not try the case. We'll be back to ask what the party supporters themselves think and what it actually means to governance. He served as a minister in the last administration. How does a petition affect the governance of a country? And on the political side, what's happening? Stay with us on Face to Face.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
Welcome back to Face on City TV. My name is Umaru Sandamado. My guest is Alex Segbefia, former Minister for Health, a spokesperson of the NDC or John Mahama's legal team in the election petition of election 2020. In 2012, we saw a petition, we saw lots of party supporters talking about it. We were in court. Lawyers are supposed to be doing their job, but we don't see your party members besieging the court or going to show solidarity with what you're doing. Is it the case that your party supporters are not interested in what you're doing, or they are doing this, on low key? Because we saw the demonstrations before you went to court, but after you entered the courtroom, all of that ceased, even though you said you could do both at the same time.
Have you seen the level of security at the court?
Yes, I have. Looks
and
like
so where are they going to go to? And you know, sometimes people create the impression that the NDC is this, that. We are in court. They are massing outside the court at this stage. Doesn't change anything. You are going to run for, in inverted commas, 42 days. Well, what is the essence of them being out there now? Everybody is glued to the TV. They all want to know what is being said, why, how. Before I came here, Omar, my phone hadn't stopped buzzing. What do they mean by this? What exactly is happening? So what is this? People are interested. People want to understand what the issues are. That's why this program, like I'm doing here, is important. So that people understand what has transpired without, or begin to understand what is going to happen in the processes. So going to stand out in the sun and be jump at this doesn't change anything. The battle is in the courtroom.
Not with the Lords anymore.
No. Go to court. We are there. And no matter how people want us to run our case, it's our case. If the courts decide, oh no, we're not happy with this, that's one decision. The court might say, well, I was here on a program and a gentleman opened the courtrooms and says that the only way you can challenge a petition is if you are able to say that you are the winner, which is totally contrary to the laws of our land. Because you don't have to show you're a winner. You have to only demonstrate that nobody got 50%. You don't have to show you're a winner. Because the law requires everybody to have 50%. Or the winner, sorry, not everybody, the winner. To have 50%, we always say +1. So over 50% is the language. So where are all these rules and things coming from, as if the people who are putting it together are not thinking?
Then people make the argument that you're only attacking the result, not the process. So the process is not wrong. They actually further argue that if you take pink sheet by pink sheet, the numbers are still black and white. If you take region by region, the numbers are still black and white. If you take constituency by constituency, the numbers are still black and white. And he puts Nana Akufo-Addo as the winner, and it's not just by 51%.
How do I know that their figures are correct?
Because those are the official figures that have been announced by these.
Where? I mean, we have seen challenges on. I was watching a program and they asked a gentleman about Techiman South. And we won in Techiman South. They said, we are talking of the parliamentary. Oh, yes, we won. You won the parliamentary, yes, okay. So where are your figures? He produced the figures. The figures turned out to be presidential figures. It was pointed out to him that, this was Anochi. But these are the presidential. What about the parliamentary that you said you won? We haven't got all our pink sheets. First time it was said that we don't have all our pink sheets. Prior to that, we had all. You see, what people say in the public space and when we are doing our program, like I'm speaking now, it's all well and good. When you get to court, have your evidence and go by the rules and this thing. So, we are in court. What people think as not relevant may become relevant. Or they may be right. It's not relevant. But it is not for anybody to decide two things. One, what our case will be. And two, whether it is relevant or not. That's for the court.
In 42 days, what are you expecting the Lords to say?
What we hope is that we are going to have a favorable hearing on our petition. And the petition will be ruled in our favor. That's why we have gone to court. And that would mean that the court has a number of options. I don't want to go into the options in our petition because then people say, but he said this, and is it a rerun or is it a runoff? Or no, go and read our petition. Leave it,
do you not think that this is affecting governance like you complained it affected your government in 2013?
How many? Do you know we were in court for 10 months?
8 months.
8 months. 8 months. They say 42 days. What is the issue? It's our constitutional right, or you shouldn't have a constitutional right.
Your legal team, do you also take care of what is happening at the parliamentary level?
Yes.
So you're also expecting some victories in the parliamentary level?
Yes.
So ultimately your belief is that you control the House and control the House, as in the Parliament House and the Jubilee House.
Exactly.
And you're determining these in courts as well, aside what is in the Supreme Court. Do you use, or are you using challenges you've recognized or talked about at the parliamentary level in your case at the Supreme Court?
No. There are two different issues. The parliamentary is different from the presidential. It has no correlation, even though people like to. It's easier for a government in power to also have parliamentary majority or parliamentary numbers. But the question, the size of your parliamentary majority is always going to be a question for government, whichever side wins. Because you see, by simple calculation, the MPP had a field day in the last 4 years. From 2016 to 2020, they would openly tell you, you can have your say, we will have our way. Because they had 60-something more MPs than we did. So even if 30 of them were outside the country traveling, they would still be able to have 130 whatever. If 5 of our people were out, they will have a majority. When you have a majority of even 5, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. What I mean by trouble is, you now have to understand the meaning of negotiation and consensus. And Jojo. Yes. Because there is no way when you pick your ministers, you have 25 of them, 20 of them from parliament, that they will always be in parliament. And you're in government. Your other MPs may be doing other things. So if you don't have consensus, you always be the minority at voting time. Unless you orchestrate it. And you try and orchestrate it in a way where you normally need your speaker to play your games. You don't have the speaker. The speaker is fair down the line. He's not doing what others did before. Even with this issue, you heard his ruling. Majority group. Take. Fine. Okay. People are happy. But there's not going to be any game playing when it comes to other issues. Because now you have somebody who's going to at least be fair. Because we didn't think we saw fairness, some of us, under different people.
Are you going to hold this government to ransom?
How?
Based on the numbers you have in parliament?
Just do the right thing. Not ransom.
You're not frustrating the government unnecessarily with your case in court and all of these things.
It's not about frustrating. Do the right thing. Period.
Alex Segbefia,
let us all have the chat. Then we will all be fine.
Alex Segbefia, thank you for coming on Face to Face.
Thank you too. Have a blessed day.
He's a member of the legal team of John Mahama, the petitioner in the election petition of election 2020. He was also a minister for health in the same NDC government. My name is Umaru Sandamado. This has been Face to Face on City TV. Of course, it's an election petition that will be following for you here on City TV. It's your world. Stay with us. More coming your way on Arch.